Physical security. Here we're going to look at the different physical security threats that are actually part of information security because, not everything is on a network, not everything is, purely information. We're going to look at the different threats, and I'd like you to, spend just a second trying to think about what these different threats are. So I'm going to start with bottom right, and I think it's pretty obvious. Hazards and threats. Obviously, fire being a rather important one, but we had gas leak, we had flooding recently. There can be different hazards and threats that can be problematic. Of course, a little pandemic can really throw a wrench in your operations, at least for a given time. Huh? Top left, unauthorized access, theft, and vandalism. Here we're talking about physical security threats, so this is not a metaphor. The person on the top left with his crowbar trying to open a door. This potentially would be an access and vandalism threat. And so one of the controls against this is to send in a penetration tester, a social engineer that is an actual person to your premises to test out whether they can gain access to this. And if you want to have a few examples of this, then the Darknet podcast, Darknet Diaries podcast is an excellent way to learn about plenty of stories about this. It's very interesting. Huh? On the bottom left, what's happening here with the coffee mug? Okay, I would have preferred if it had been on say a keyboard or something, but it's simply human errors. Let's understand that most issues that an IT department is going to face, even if they might look like fraud at the beginning, is human errors. Don't assume that people, are necessarily malicious. Always just start with the assumption that they're stupid. No, I'm a bit mean here, but don't look for maliciousness when human stupidity is a better explanation. And top right, service disruptions. So, our Singapore office not being able to get a proper connection to our, centralized database. But indeed, here I'm kind of showing the physical security threat of, can be a human error of maybe someone, flipping the wrong switch or something. So what are the controls against this? Okay. So for hazards and disasters, yeah, I'd start with a fire extinguisher. How about fire alarms? Maybe disaster recovery tests as well, and flood prevention. So this is a great example of, a big American bank during the, floods in New York, which had a very interesting information security tactic, which was, to prevent against the hurricane coming to New York, they simply had sandbags. Sandbags. Come on. That's your simplest thing. Protect with sometimes physical means. For unauthorized access, theft, and vandalism, we have, security personnel can do wonders. And nowadays we have different types of, access controls. These can exist, cards, your little badge to access, but there are even, controls. There are even means for hackers to be able to, copy cards at a distance, so it's not infallible. And so you have more and more biometric controls. And this might sound futuristic, but for anyone who owns a modern smartphone, this isn't necessarily so. You unlock your iPhone, or at least I do, by showing your face to it. And even though it only works for me one time on two, maybe I have a strange face that it can't analyze very well. Biometric controls are something that you see in the day-to-day. And even though you might not think you have them in your organization, think, do you have, for instance, access to a network by using a code which is sent to your phone? Your phone, which uses your thumb or your face recognition to be able to actually unlock that. And so more and more organizations are actually using these biometric, bio as in biology, and metric as in means to measure, biometric controls to actually be able to provide extra security. For service disruptions, you can think about a few, but I gave the example of having a local server. But also think about electromagnetic interference shielding. Okay, let me give a little explanation about this, but cosmic rays are actually a real thing. There have been cases where software have not worked properly because of the way our universe works, sending little rays, and I'm not a physicist, so I'm not going to tell you which ones, which can actually mess with programs, even bank transfers. And so there are ways of shielding, say, servers. In fact, this is a common control that you have to check for in a server room. Shielding servers from interference. You have to shield them from other magnets. Less nowadays, but I remember growing up and I was told, don't bring a magnet close to a computer, it can mess it up. And I believe that's still true. What is an uninterruptible power supply? Well, it's something that you should check in every single service room. It's something that you should check in every server room that you might be auditing. An uninterruptible power supply, indeed, it is an extra power generator or a battery which kicks in immediately if there's a cut in the power. And it might only give 2 hours of power. The best ones give a lot more time than that. But it would be able to kick in given an interruption in the power supply. And so you'd verify that to avoid service disruptions. And then for human errors, I mean, you can have manuals, you can have procedures, but quite frankly, a lot of people don't read those, or at least not very well in details. So a big warning sign, server room, don't enter, can do wonders as well.